My name is Catriona Donohoe. I'm a teaching principal of a rural primary school, St Michael's National School in Clifford in County Cavan. So we have 3 class teachers, full-time SET position, which is me, 2 SNAs, and we've just opened up our first special class this year. So I'm going to speak for the next few minutes just about our recent maths assessment, and just to give anyone any tips or things that might get them over an inspection relevant to the subject. So the first thing that was asked of me when the inspector came in was she looked at the child-friendly safeguarding statements to make sure that the pictorial representations of those were in each class. She looked at the risk assessment and that the teacher's safeguarding statement was in each of the teachers' folders for preparation in their classrooms. Our Beacon Altus flag had fallen down, so I had to put that back up again. And the inspector then looked for evidence of the process of the Beacon Altus procedures. The Beacon Altus posters that were done by the children, that they were up and around the school, and then evidence of the questionnaires for the parents, the teachers and the staff, and evidence of the school self-evaluation process that took place to inform our practice and our policy for Beacon Altus. There was also, she wanted to see the outcomes and the evidence of the reporting of the procedures and the policy to the parents and the Board of Management, and she looked for the evidence in the minutes of the Board of Management meetings and also the evidence on our Aladdin Connect as to when that went out to the parents. There was also, she looked for evidence of the Big Five policies that have to go out at the start of every year, and that was a printout from our Aladdin Connect as well too. My subject inspection was maths, but the wellbeing piece was done and is done for all subject inspections. So the maths plan was gone through, and I had to provide a copy of that. And then she went through the teachers' long-term and short-term plans and their timetables to make sure that maths was being properly timetabled across all of the classrooms. There was a huge emphasis in our school on SET and the maths aspect of that, and a huge element of the conversation that was had between myself as principal and SET teacher and our maths coordinator was the process on the evidence that informed the school support plans for the children, and also the evidence that was used to inform the maths policy and practice in our school. Um, the inspector also asked to see copies of the Croke Park minutes of the meeting to see how the curricular area was being discussed among staff, how it was being planned for, and one of the recommendations on our report was that our Croke Park minutes on our Croke Park meetings were too organisation based and not enough curricular based. She went through all of the in terms of SET, the percentiles and the school support plans for each of the children, and the criteria that was used to warrant the support plans for each of the children and how that was being done. So that assessment piece then was also used in terms of she wanted to see evidence of how our assessment in maths, so our classroom teachers' evidence and the evidence from the end of year maths assessments, how that assessment was informing the teaching and the learning and where we were as a school. So she needed to see evidence of that, and then how we record that in terms of what the teachers use to identify the gaps in the learning or where to start, what we're good at, and then how that assessment piece informs the practice that goes on in each of the individual classrooms. In terms of SET, it was how the children fitted into this maths plan as well, and what the rationale was behind that in terms of the assessment piece of the Drumcondras and maybe what they were weakest at, that needs to be part of the student support plans in the school. There was a lot of talk about teachers using their own agentic professional voice, and that's really important. But the big thing was that, as well as having an agentic professional voice, there also had to be evidence to back this up. So it was all evidence based. There was also evidence asked for in terms of the early literacy and the numeracy for our junior and senior infants, and how the results of those in terms of class teachers assessment and then whole school assessment, in terms of breaking that down, and the strands that didn't feature in the maths plans for each of the individual teachers' practice in their classrooms. And that one of the recommendations in our report was that we needed to have more transparent transfer of knowledge from the tests to inform the teaching and the learning, and then that assessment piece on how that evidence is used to inform the teaching and the learning of the children. Um, she talked a lot as well too about the pedagogical practice that is going on in our school, and she went through the school self-evaluation plan for the last 3 years in terms of well-being and how that fitted into each of the individual subjects. For me, I suppose it's made me more proactive as a principal and an SET teacher in terms of looking at the results of our assessment and not seeing them as something that is done in isolation, and that we are now getting better at going through the results and the practice of that in terms of our new maths curriculum, and how we are trying to embed that into our school and how we are trialing things and the documentation process of all of that. Um, Again, there was an acknowledgement that a lot of the new curriculum in terms of maths is about a culture of change, and she really wanted to see the children being mathematical and that it was child centred in our learning approach. But I suppose that part of the change for us is that more collaboration between SET, between mainstream class teachers, but even that SNAs have to be informed of that and the different levels that are going on in each of the classrooms. So overall, I suppose it has given me more concrete evidence in terms of informing our Croke Park meetings, in terms of informing our practice, and it gives me something really, I suppose, relevant and concrete to keep coming back to in terms of our maths report. That what are we doing? Why are we doing it? Where is the evidence to inform the children and the staff and the parents that we are doing it? So it's definitely made me more aware in terms of how we are being mathematical. So I hope some of this helps anyone that is going through the process, and the very best of luck.